This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. Yeah, today we'll discuss about scopes. So what is scope of variables and scope of payloads in Mule. So let me just. So until now, as you know, we have been doing all the development, all the debugging, and you might have observed these things, right? In a Mule 4 event, so in whatever we are doing, we will be seeing this one. In the message structure, you will be seeing payload and attributes. Whenever you are debugging, whenever any component you are stopping and debugging, this you may be seeing like payload and attributes whenever we are dealing with any kind of connectors or loggers or any kind of shapes. And in addition to that, if at all we create any variables, we are saving any data in variables, there also we will be able to see variables. And then there is one more thing called exception message. So this is what is this is whenever we are getting any errors. So we must have observed many errors, right, while development. So whenever we see errors, only in that case we are able to see exceptions. That is in errors we are able to see error dot description, error dot detailed description. So we have seen many things, right? So I will show it simply one more time. But so this is simply about Mule 4 event. So Mule 4 event consists of all these things. Message, in which we will be having payload and attributes defaultly, and variables and exception message. So we'll see what are the scope of this one. So in what shapes we'll be able to see all these events, and in what shapes we'll not be able to see. So each scope of these four, we'll see that one. So for that, let me create a project. So I will say this is scope. Okay. So I'll just create a sample API like we have been doing from the beginning. I'll create one API. I won't give any base path, but I will just give scope API, and I'll keep a logger, and I'll just print the payload. And then I will just insert the data. So this you are all well versed with what are we doing and all. We are loading the jar file and just I'm connecting to database. System and my default password. Okay, I'll just insert into EMP status. These are the named parameters. You all know this one. Okay. View payload dot MPID payload dot EMP name and .emp status. Okay. And after this one, did I miss anything? Okay, I missed the column. And after this one, you all know, I'll just give the transfer message and I'll set the response saying that this is success. Result equals to code 200 message success. Okay, so we know what we are doing here. Until now, I have just implemented small API with where I'm getting the data from my API and I'm inserting the data to database and giving the response. Here, let me just run it and show you. Until here, until whenever we are passing any data to logger, the elements which we are getting from our request, like the payload or attributes, won't do any changes. Logger will just simply implement whatever we are showing to the console. It will just show. So this you all know. But coming to insert or any connector type of data, they will change our payload. That is why we have been using our variables. So in one of the classes, I mentioned why to use variables and in which case we have to use variables and how to create variables. So let me just this one. Okay. Host API and my body will be JSON and I will just give EMP ID. Let me check if I have that already somewhere. Yeah, I have it. Let me hit it. So now you will be able to see in Mule Debugger, we will be able to see the attributes. What are the attributes it is? We have headers, we have query parameters, URI parameters, everything we can see, and also payload we can see. And even if we send it to the next, in the logger, we won't be, any change will not be there because logger will not impact all our attributes or payload. But the insert or any connectors like a database inserting or updating or any data transforming connectors, they will change our payload and attribute. If you see, our payload and attributes are changed. So for this purpose, we have used variables. Let's say I am keeping a variable here. Let's variable. And I'm keeping EMP data. And I will keep my payload. So whenever I'm keeping this one, I will be able to see all my payload data in this particular variable. We have already covered this. I'm just giving you a recap so that you will understand the context. Let it run. Let it. Okay. Let me hit it again. Next, we are getting attributes payloads. And after variable of even set variable will not change our payload. It will not change our attributes, but it will just create a data. I mean variable whatever we are creating, EMP data. So here we can have all our payload. But if you see here, even after the next connector, we don't have attributes and we don't have payload. But here we have saved our payload data in a variable. But see here, we do not have any attributes. We have only saved payload. But what if you want attributes as well? Suppose if you want to save any query parameters or header parameters or any parameters. So we cannot keep on creating variables like that, right? So if it is only one attribute, like if you want to save only query parameters, then it's fine. We can create one variable and we can use it in other steps. But what if you want entire attributes, like you have 7 to 8 attributes which you need to use in the further steps? So in that way, you cannot create 7 to 8 variables and you cannot keep using it, right? It is not a standard way of developing. It is not as per the coding standard. In that case, what we can do is, in MuleSoft, we have an option called as for any connectors. You will be able to see here. Let me show you. One second, it's responding. So in that case, what you can do is, whatever connector you have, just click on this connector and go to and wrap it in a subflow or flow. So if I want to extract to flow, I will click on flow. And I will give, let's say I want to give the flow name as insert flow. This will be extracted to my other flow. Now here in the flow reference, you will be able to see the target. So this is a very useful function which we can use. So for any components which you think that they will be changing the entire data, the entire payload, for that what you can keep is create the target variable. Like suppose if I want my what are the data coming from this one, like whatever the insert is doing, I want to change it to insert data. Now let me show you what is happening. Let me save it. So that data coming from that particular insert will be stored inside this one insert data, and my payload will be as it is until coming here. Let me save this and let me run it. I will click on next. Next. Now until here we have our payload, we have our variable, we have our attributes. If I click on next, my inserting until how here also I'll be having all of this one. After inserting, if you see here, my attributes. So here all my attributes are here, same in the similar way. I have all the attributes from the beginning, my headers, my query parameters, everything is there, including my payload. My payload is also there. So the payload until here will be carrying forward here. And additionally, we can see one more variable called as insert data, in which the response from this insert will be stored in this insert data instead of changing the payload. Okay, in this way we can use target function where we can create a variable, and whatever the data coming from this particular connector, we can save it to this variable instead of giving the payload. Okay, suppose in the use case like you want to insert the data in database and also you want to call any REST API. So in this case here you can keep your REST API and you can use your payload instead of creating the payload variable, right? You can directly use the payload and you can directly use the attribute. Any questions here? Hello?
Yeah, I get no questions.
Kirti, could you repeat the last point?
Yeah, sure. So whatever.
If we want to add anything.
Yeah, if you want to carry forward your payload or attributes even after some connector shape. So in that case, what you need to do is keep a flow reference, and in the flow reference, keep the target variable. So instead of just, so whenever if I don't keep any target variable here, right? Defaultly what it will happen is the payload coming from insert will be becoming my payload. If I keep a target variable here, so the response coming from insert will come into insert data instead of the change in the payload. So insert data will consume it. So if you see here in the debugger, you will see after this shape, after flow reference shape, my payload and my attributes are from the beginning only, are in intact. They are not changing at all. But here, what are the response? Where are we getting a response from insert? The response is getting from here, from insert data. It is all the response coming from insert will be in the format of insert data, because I have kept the target variable here. If I don't keep, let me remove and let me show you. If I don't keep, again my payload will be changing. You send, let me save it again. Okay, let me send. Next, next, next. Here also I have attributes, payload and variable. And if I click on next, if you see here, because of I did not keep any variable here in the target variable, my payload has become this payload. Whatever the response insert is giving, that is my payload. My payload and attributes got changed. To avoid this, what you can do is you can extract the response from insert to a variable simply. Okay, insert response. So that our attributes and payload will be not changing, and you can utilize them overall the flow.
Okay.
Okay, it is deployed. Let me send it. Send until here we have attributes, payload, and if I click on next, insert, after insert, even now we are having attributes and payload. The response, where does the response go from insert? It will go into this variable, insert response. In this way, we can just handle our attributes and payload. We can save our attributes and payload without changing. Okay. Any questions so far?
Okay.
Okay. So let me. So here, this is our target one. So what happens if at all we keep like we are having any errors? Let's see for any errors how we are getting it. Let me stop the service. To get the error, I will just say I will stop my database service so that I can get some error. And here I will go for Oracle. Yes, I'll stop this server. Okay, let me just check if it is working. It should not work now if I do a test connection. It is failing now because I stopped the server. So if at all I hit now, like if at all I hit my service, how it will go, I will see. Next, insert. I'm getting some error here. If I go on next, now you can see, what we have observed is, we can see my attributes are there. What are the attributes I'm getting from my listener? I'm getting all the attributes. I'm getting the payload. I'm getting the variables. In addition to that, I'm getting some component called as error. So only in case of error, we will be able to see this. Could not obtain source, error type, exception type, everything. So this is also the use. So now if you don't want to have these variables, like if you don't want to do this one, in the first classes, in the error handling classes, we have seen try catch block. So what is try catch? We are just keeping. So whenever we want to handle the errors only for particular block of elements, for that one we can use try catch. And if you want, suppose in this flow I have my error handling. This is a flow, that's why I'll be having error handling. But if I use any subflow, and I keep my insert here, let me, instead of this one, I will give my subflow. And in this subflow, since we will not have any try catch block, we will keep try catch block. So I will keep try. And I'll keep my connector here. So when do we use try? In subflows, generally we will not have any error handling. That is why we go for try catch block. And for suppose if you are having multiple blocks and you want to handle for only few of the blocks, you can keep them in try block. And in error handling, you all know how to do the error handling. I can keep on error continue, and I can simply keep a log or something, say like this. Error from on error continue, and I will set up variable here to understand the scope. On error continue, where I'll keep this one, and I will set value as something like I'll give the error value here, error dot description. Give this one here to understand. Just I'll keep this variable name here, and I will see whether that variable I'm accessible here, it is accessible here or not. So let me save this, and I will delete this flow. Let it run. Okay, it executed. Let me send it. Next, insert flow. It is going to try error. It will go on error continue. So if you see in on error continue, you will be able to see again all the attributes and payload are intact, and click on next. I'm setting the variable, and if I see even after this one, I here after this one I will not be able to see the error one. So the difference between on error continue and on error propagate we have seen when we use on error continue, when we use on error propagate. In addition to this, if you observe here, whatever the variable I'm setting in my on error continue, it is coming like in insert okay. Yeah, in whatever you are setting in on error continue, it will be just for logging purpose, but my payload and my variables will not be able to use in the main flow. What we have to do that for that one. So here you will also not be able to see the error. You will not understand what is the error. You can log that all. So understand that one, what is the error and what are the variables. You have to keep on error propagate instead of on error continue. Let me keep on error propagate, and I will keep this one, and I will just drag and drop it, and I will delete on error continue. In this case, now you will be able to see errors also. Let me send again. Let me complete this execution first. Resume. Okay, let me stop and let me run it again. Debug. Okay, let me send my request. Here you will be able to see the logger, and click on next. Next, insert flow. Next, again it will come error. And if you see error, I'm setting the variable. And now even after coming to the parent flow, this error is propagating, and here I'm able to see this one, my error. So earlier we were not able to see any error. So here we can see error. So if you want to capture like what is the error happening, so in that case, what you need to do is you have to use on-error propagate instead of on-error continue. Okay, and we have one more flow, one more scope called as asynchronous scope. So you all know why we use asynchronous. Any event or any flow which you want to do parallelly, like you don't want to wait for it to complete. Suppose in the use case, let's say in a real-time example, you are getting the data and you are inserting the data, and also what you want to do is you want to just insert the data into some, let's say, monitoring database or any logging database. So that database will not give you any response. It will just send the data into database, and that is just only for logging purpose. So in that case, you won't wait for that particular request and particular response, but you can simply keep in the asynchronous block. And in the asynchronous block, if you want to set any payload or set any variable, you will not be able to do that. Let's see, because that variable or that payload will not take effect in the main flow. So let's say I'm keeping a variable, async variable, async var, and I'm keeping the value also async var, and let me save it. Okay, let me send. So you all know why we use asynchronous. Asynchronous is just used for parallel processing, means it will be running in multiple threads. So now, if you see here, this variable, even it went to this one set variable, we cannot see the set variable that whatever variable we have set. Asynchronous variable will not be able to see in the regular flow, in the synchronous part of it. So it is advised you don't keep any variables or in asynchronous block or any set payloads. Don't keep in this one. Use asynchronous block only if you want to load some data, or if you are having some process from which you don't want any response. Any response, it should not be used across all the process. In that case only use the asynchronous. Suppose here I'm setting the set payload and I'm setting the payload as my payload. Okay, let me send this and send and I'll save it. Okay, and synchronous. See, it is coming to asynchronous. It will go here again. It will come here. So asynchronous means it will be running in multiple threads, as you know. So even after setting variable, will not be able to see the variable, and even after setting the payload, my payload will be the original payload only. It will not be setting. So whenever, what we understood from is, whenever you want to use any flows which won't give response, that should go here. Even if you set variable or set payload, it won't take any effect in the further steps. Okay, this is one of the asynchronous, one of the observation we have to keep in mind while developing. So until now, what we have seen, the first one is target variable. So if at all you want your payload and attributes to go through the connector shapes, keep that in a flow or subflow and keep it the target variable. So if you keep the target variable, the response will be coming into this one, and so that your original payload and original attributes will flow through. And the second one, if you are keeping a subflow and you are using try catch and you are using on-error propagate or on-error continue, the error will not persist if you are using on-error continue. To persist the error, you want to use on-error propagate. And coming to asynchronous block, if you are using asynchronous block, your set variables on your set payloads, they will not work because it will be running in multiple threads and it won't take any effect in the rest of the flow. Okay, any questions here? Okay. Here we let's see the new component which we haven't discussed until now, that is until successful. So we have one scope where if you want, like suppose if there is a batch process or there is some, you're keeping a scheduler, like all the data from CSV, you are loading it into bulk insert into database. At that time, you are doing a bulk insert step here. Let's assume you are doing a bulk insert step. And due to any error like database not availability or any connection error, it is failing. So because we are dealing with large amount of data like from CSV and doing a bulk insert, we should not simply throw the error. We should let this MuleSoft understand that, try to execute 2 to 3 times, multiple times. So for that, what we can keep is we can use until successful. So if you drag and drop the until successful and keep your components which you want to try for multiple times. And in until successful, you will be able to see maximum tries, like how many times of this one you need to try, for how many times you can try. If at all this is failing, how many times you have to try. Let's keep, I will keep 3, and instead of this one I will just say 10. Okay, let me save it. So now instead of, okay, let me keep one more logger also. So that we'll understand. Okay, should debug actually. Send. Now let's see what happens when error comes. Now also my database is not working. Asynchronous. It is going to this one. It will error out. So for now, what it will do is it will wait for 10,000 milliseconds, so that and it will retry again. So that if at all there is any connection error with any connector, let's say database or any API if you are using here, any connectivity error, it will try again. See, it is trying again. It will try for 3 times. And this you have to use only in certain cases where suppose you are doing like reading the data and doing in the bulk insert way, you have to do in this way. But in real-time integrations, when I say real-time integrations, our APIs, right? If at all we are going with the API approach, if you keep large amount of milliseconds gap here, like here you are trying 3 times, but you are giving this much amount of time. In that case, what will happen is our REST API timeout exception will come to the users. So in that case, you have to use much less amount of time for retrying. Like you have to just give 3 to 4 milliseconds, and it will just try for 3 to 4 times. Because our whenever we are exposing REST API, right? Let's say our REST API is used by any web application or any other client application, it will not wait for until that time. If at all its execution is taking more than 30 seconds or something, they will get timeout exception. So that is a real good practice. Whenever you are developing an API, it is best to avoid until successful. And if at all you are sure that that particular connection, whatever the connection may be, it may have some connectivity issues, then keep less amount of time. Don't keep large amount of time and until successful. Keep number of retries less and also number of milliseconds less. So now that it has tried after three times, it came error, and it will error out now. That's all. Okay, any questions here? So this is very important. So you can try on your own, keep all the scopes. You can keep asynchronous scope, try scope, and you can keep until successful, and try whatever you're setting the variable, setting the payload. It is very good to understand the scopes of each variable and payload, so that when you are doing in original projects, it will be very useful for you when to use which block and all. Okay.
Okay. Kirti, I have a doubt here. What is the difference between asynchronous and scatter? Like yesterday you said, no, scatter gather.
Scatter gather means it will run in a parallel way. Let me show you. So here, if you are we're keeping like this one. So if at all I'm keeping multiple things, logger, and logger, I'm giving multiple things like this. So what scatter gather does is, instead of running in a sequential way, it will go in a parallel way. In asynchronous, it will also run in a parallel way, but it will run in a multiple threads. But here, if you see scatter gather, it will run in a single thread. That means, let me show you the example by running it. Okay. And next, if you see 1, 2, 3, and next here, but if we come to asynchronous block, it will come here and it will go for the next step. So this means whatever we are keeping in asynchronous, it is running in a separate thread. It won't affect our original process like this.
Okay.
But with whatever we are keeping in a scatter gather, it will be running in a single thread. Okay.
Okay, Kirti, understood.
Any other questions?
No, Kirti.
Okay. Yeah, if at all you don't have any questions, we can wrap the session up. Tomorrow we can see about DataWeave and all the operations we perform on DataWeave. So that is very important. So we can see tomorrow.
Okay, Kirti.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Kirti.
Thank you.